So yet another IPL is over. What did you make of it? Obviously you seem to have liked it because viewership numbers were very higher than they've ever been. Here on Cricbuzz, our numbers were much higher. We enjoyed bringing it to you. So overall, I'd look back and say this was a wildly successful Tata IPL. How was it different from other years? What did I like? What did I dislike? I thought I'd put together some points in this review of the tournament. What is different? Home and away was back. And home and away wasn't quite what it used to be when home and away was a regular occurrence. And you could see why. For a lot of players, their home ground now wasn't a ground that played a lot on, because with the auctions, there's always a lot of churn. They hadn't been to that ground before. You're playing it after 3 years. So home and away didn't deliver quite the same advantage. I thought there was only one team, and that is because of the consistency of the wickets at the 1K day. Only Mumbai Indians, I think, maxed their home ground advantage. But I do believe that franchises must be given those grounds at least a month before so they can work to their advantage. They can look at the composition of their side, see what is their best chance of winning, because I think home advantage is legitimate. Chennai, for example, this year started off differently. Towards the end, you started to see they had their home advantage, especially in that first qualifier. But Delhi Capitals had the wrong pitch for their makeup. Kolkata Knight Riders had the wrong pitch for their makeup. And when so much is riding, there's so much money, so much viewership, so much pressure, I think we need to look at home advantage. The other big thing, of course, was the impact sub. Did you like it? I think it's here to stay. What did the impact sub achieve? If you actually look at what that specific player didn't do a lot. I think it was the availability and the presence of that player that made such a lot of difference to the way teams were batting, especially the way teams were batting, even though I thought some teams used the bowler very well as an impact sub. Someone comes and makes 10 of 4 balls, 15 of 9 balls. All those were adding about 20 runs to the score. But I thought more than that, the fact that you had that extra batter, a Dhruv Jurel, a Nehal Vadera, Ayush Badoni, you had players like those that allowed the top order to go and play some big shots. And so what was the outcome? This year, we saw more 200 plus totals than at any other time, more than double the 200 plus scores. The power play scores were the highest ever. Batting first, teams were scoring a little more runs. They were winning more batting first. Balls per 6 came down. So you saw a huge difference in batting. I thought this year, batting went up to another level. That happens from time to time. The bowlers being the survivors, the bowlers then have to catch up, and it'd be very interesting to see. What happens next year, whether the bowlers come up with something new to stop the batters, or whether we just come to terms with the fact that 9 as an economy rate is good. Anything under 8 is outstanding. 8 to 9 is absolutely fine. Do we accept that new metric? So I thought those were the two big things that happened in this year's IPL. Some of the senior players did well. With the influx of youth and the focus on them, it's always good to see the senior players doing well. Faf and Virat, they were fantastic at RCB. Sometimes you get the feeling they were almost too good and didn't leave much for those to follow. Maybe they weren't enough to follow, but Faf and Virat at the top of the order were absolutely sensational, as indeed were Gaikwad and Conway. There's something about an opening pair that comes out and just delivers, and those two did. And can you imagine if Butler had a big season? Butler and Jaiswal would be another of those combinations. So I loved those veterans doing well. Rashid Khan, Sky, Shami, all expected to do well and did magnificently. And I thought Mohammad Siraj, fast joining the ranks of the experienced players, he started to go up too. But there were moments that brought a smile to your face. And there were players you said, do they have one more hurrah in them? Can they come and do something interesting? I thought 2-3 of those players stood out. Ridhiman Saha. A couple of the moments that I remember at the end of this Tata IPL were stumpings by Saha. Some of his takes. One leg side stumping of Noor Ahmed. Brilliant. Ajinkya Rahane. That strike rate. He comes into the Chennai Super Kings and obviously they give him a license, they give him a role, and something regerminates in Rahane. I enjoyed watching Ajinkya Rahane bat. And Piyush Chawla. You know, I don't know what it is. Every time you look at Piyush Chawla, people smile and they start to do this. And Piyush Chawla controlled those middle overs. I think if Mumbai made the qualifiers, there's a lot of credit that goes to the batters. Piyush Chawla had a big role to play in there. So some of these players, I thought they brought a smile to your face. Who did we miss? Almost every team had players that they missed, but no team was hurt more than the Delhi Capitals and the absence of Rishabh Pant. And I missed watching Rishabh Pant. There's something very bubbly about him. There's something about him that makes you say, come watch me. And I really hope, Rishabh, I don't know if you're watching this, but really look forward to seeing you again in the IPL because you're very good for the tournament. What about the youngsters? There were some players whom you knew of who went to another level, and there were 6, 7, 8, so many of them. But over the tournament, who were the ones that caught the eye? Who were the ones that went up? I loved watching Tilak Varma bat. There's something about Tilak Varma. He's always going to be batting maybe 1 or 2 numbers above Rinku Singh. Rinku was known to be a good player, but Rinku Singh this year just exploded. So the 2 left-handers, Tilak Varma maybe moving up to the top of the order. Rinku Singh with a very good first-class average, but still sort of being that finisher in that role. I thought those 2 took giant strides up. I liked watching Suyash Sharma. And I mentioned Suyash simply because we knew absolutely nothing about Suyash Sharma. I went and asked Chandu Pandit about him and he said, I just saw him in the trials and I picked him up. A very interesting bowling action. See, even as I'm talking about him, my head is going that way. So I like the fact that he bowls a big leg break, bowls a big wrong run. So Suyash Sharma, Mayank Markandeya, he's been around for a while. Those are the 2 leggies that really caught the eye. But with bat and ball, 2 players stood out. Yashasvi Jaiswal. I always wanted to see how he would be against pace. And one of my moments of this tournament was when Jofra Archer unleashed a really quick short ball and Jaiswal had the time to turn back and hit it in the gap at the Wankhede Stadium onto where the hockey ground used to be. So Yashasvi Jaiswal was the standout emerging player for me this year. And Patirana. How Chennai Super Kings have looked after a young player from Sri Lanka, how they've given him the responsibility, how he's grown into that responsibility. And for one of the most storied franchises, he is a 4-over bank at the end. So 2 standout players for me, Jaiswal and Patirana. I also had a couple of peeves about this tournament. I thought the matches went on way too long. There were too much time wasting, too many referrals. I mean, now that we've got the wides and the no balls as well, everything is being referred. I thought the umpires grew a little more nervous because they said, right, I've got this new toy, so let me be absolutely certain of everything. The players said at one time, I've got 2 referrals left, I might as well take a look. I think the waist-high no ball, we have to find a better way of judging a waist-high no ball with greater uniformity. We have to find a way of judging the close catch with greater uniformity. What I do see happening next year is that every player before the tournament starts will be measured for where the waist is, where the trousers are, and that will be put in maybe through AR, just put it in there, and then with the ball follow, see if it is going above that. So the other, and I don't quite know how to put this, was the toxicity and the tribalism in social media. Now, you look all around sport and there is a great tribalism. To some extent, that is the strength. I'm United, you're Liverpool. And in the US, I'm sure it's like that in the home of the leagues as well. But brands caught on, franchises caught on. It became more and more toxic. And I'm wondering, is Needle good? Is this a generation thing? Am I slowly becoming past gen, having to struggle to relate to next gen? All these thoughts went into my mind, but I thought the level of personal abuse this year on social media was very, very disappointing. I sometimes wonder what their families think. But then again, as I said, maybe I'm generation past in matters of civility. So there you go. Was the tournament too long? 74 games just kept coming one after the other. That is for you to decide because you determine. In a couple of years it'll be 84, it'll then go on to 94. We got some great games this year. The closest games in the history of the IPL. Overall was a fantastic tournament. The little things will always be there. It was a fabulous tournament.